Buckle up, because today we have a political thriller, a financial expose, and a Vegas reality check all in one. Today on Locked On A's.
You are Locked On A's, your daily podcast on the Athletics, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Boney, one name, all passion. Thank you for making Locked On A's your first listen of the day. I'm from the Bay Area, and I've been a diehard A's fan since 81. This isn't just another A's podcast. This is the most informative and insightful show on the A's, period. We cover the A's every single day, breaking down games, delivering the latest team news, and giving you deep, thoughtful analysis you will not find anywhere else. If it's happening in Sacramento or in Las Vegas, we got you covered. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. And please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button wherever you are following the show. Today on Locked On A's, we are diving straight into the heart of the A's departure from Oakland with a guest who's got receipts. Zennie Abraham, former economic advisor to former Oakland Mayor Harris and longtime expert on development in the city. Zennie joins us to break down exactly what went wrong. Was it all on John Fisher? Did the City of Oakland play a bigger role than they have let on? Zennie isn't pulling punches. He's here to give you the unfiltered truth about the politics, the money, and the missed opportunities that sent the A's packing. Then we head south to Las Vegas with Ron Futrell, sports anchor at KLAS-TV, to get the pulse on what's happening with the A's supposed future home. Are the people in Vegas actually excited? When is the stadium project going to move from headlines to hardhats? Plus, I'll break down the latest injury updates across the organization, from the minor leagues to the big league club. This is a must-listen show for anyone who cares about the A's, their future, and the truth behind the chaos. Zennie, what is happening?
Hey, sir, how are you?
Good, man. Welcome
Thank
back.
you for the introduction. One minor correction to the introduction, and that
Please.
is that prior to my time as economic advisor to Oakland Mayor Elihu Harris, that was 1995 to 1999. My first job out of grad school from the city planning program at University of California, Berkeley, in 1985 was with the Oakland Redevelopment Agency as an intern. And my first project was basically, if you ever live in the Bay Area, you've been to Emeryville and you know the Best Buy that's there.
Yeah.
Well, that Best Buy was there because of my memo that I wrote the fall of 1985, my first use of tax increment financing, because as a reporter asked me to learn it and go to the law school and read the legislation that tells you how to make the calculations to build a model. And so that memo basically said, hey, look, instead of building a wet weather storage facility here is the redevelopment tax increment financing throw off from a combined big box retail, hotel, and office and restaurant development there. And they agreed, and the rest is history. And Ezra specifically asked me to write that memo. He says, here's what I want you to do. So do you know how to do it? And I said, yeah, not a problem. So I put myself on a 24-hour crash course of tax increment financing that year.
That's where it started, huh?
Yeah, that's where it started.
And I'm glad you brought up.
And then after that, I was consultant to the city of Emeryville, specifically on tax increment finance revenue forecasting. And I did similar work with the San Francisco Redevelopment Agency as well.
let's talk about stadiums here for a second. It's become a popular topic not only in Vegas and throughout the country with regard to cities getting franchises, whether it's baseball, football, and new stadiums. Seems like it's constantly going up. Now you have one side of the fence that's been saying, listen, and the big thing is, where is the money coming from, right? Privately financed should be privately paid for. Yet, all we start hearing about is taxpayers are paying for these new stadiums. And a lot of attention has been put on Sacramento and what is going on in Sacramento right now, and whether the A's and the lack of attendance, or however you want to portray that, could cost Sacramento a new franchise. My take is all that is baloney. Whatever city has the most money for who can produce the largest subsidy for a new stadium will get a brand new sports franchise or expansion. What is your take on what is going on right now in both sides of it, both concerns? Is the concern against valid, and is the case for it maybe a little bit too too exaggerated?
Now we're talking about Sacramento now, right?
Well, we're talking just in general, new stadiums in going into new cities. Is it
No,
good for this
no.
game?
Well, we're in the middle of a new era of something called sports tourism. And now you can literally buy a package to visit a city and go to its ballpark, stay at the hotels, and of course, spend money at the restaurant shops and basically help enrich that city's tax base. You can go, if you were fortunate enough to go to the Super Bowl. Now it's called NFL Live, NFL Live on in an NFL on location. Excuse me, NFL on location basically takes you to the city and has this whole package of not only things you can do, but tours to the stadium. You can go to the locker rooms, you can go to the press box, all over the place. So this is a whole new industry, and not only that, it's worldwide, not just the United States, but also in Europe. So the I now right, the idea is that these stadiums are palaces of entertainment, and this is a full flowering of the internet's impact on entertainment, coupled with how it our insatiable thirst for sports. You know, uh, I can remember back before there was an ESPN, and you couldn't catch women's bodybuilding on television, let alone in baseball. You had to catch your team in your city. You didn't have multiple channels or freedoms or to choose from. Rather, you have the freedom to move around. Now you have that. So it's a product of technology impacting sports, and in turn, sports growing from that.
Is the taxpayer going to be hit with this? Is funds being taken away from, let's say, as we've seen recently publicated in Vegas with regard to the education and money, how we understand it, or how's been educated to us, being diverted from education to the stadium?
No,
And
because the assumption there is that you have this chunk of money that is a substantial portion of the $2.5 billion state spending on education that's being used. And first of all, that's not what's happening at all. It's that the tax credits are not outside of the A's 380 million are not all of it. It's only 180 million. The rest is the bond issue, and it's 120 million for the proceeds of the bond issue plus the bond cost. That comes out to maybe about something like 10%, if
sure,
that, of this total stadium costs. And guess what? Each time the stadium cost rises,
Yeah.
The public contribution gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So no, not at all. And then on top of that, there is a healthy community benefits package. Now, what is that? That's the modern trade-off between developers and economic development officers and elected officials in cities where elected officials say, hey, you know what? If you're going to build this, you want X amount of dollars from us. Well, in turn, why don't you provide, for example, use by the community of your ballroom area over these weeks, or a special luxury box, which is what the city of Oakland and the county of Alameda got
it.
that they were supposed to use for the community, but they also use for their elected officials.
Yeah, right.
And so on.
Would you agree that in speaking of Sacramento and the new franchise, that everything going in Sacramento and it affecting a new franchise is a bunch of baloney, and that the new franchise is simply going to go to the city that provides the largest subsidy for a new stadium, or does it go deeper than that?
That argument reminds me of something that Willie Brown tried to do to me.
Is that right?
Yeah, when I was working on trying to bring the Super Bowl to Oakland, he told Rita Williams of Channel 2, as I think about it too, I was wondering maybe it was a bad idea that I sent Rita Williams over his budget meeting, because I did. I was trying to ambush Willie, and and so and Rita was only too happy to play a role, and so she went to his budget hearing, a public one, and asked regarding about the Super Bowl bid that I was hitting, and he said that that if they get the Super Bowl, meaning Oakland, that they don't. And I said,
Right.
no. I said, no. I kept saying all he has to do is build a new stadium.
Right.
That's how we got into this mess to begin with, because Eddie DeBartolo, and the owner of the
Niners
at the time,
the Niners,
and his right hand, Ed Moransky, was just a heck of a nice guy. They miscalculated on the construction costs for the facility. They used North Carolina construction cost prevailing wage and not Bay Area.
Gotcha.
And so what they round up with was a situation where the revenue to pay for the stadium wasn't great enough to do that calculatively. Okay, they looked at the spreadsheet and said, "Oh, this isn't going to work," and that caused the planned stadium that was supposed to go at Candlestick Point and developed in part by Lennar, headed by Kofi Bonner at the time. Kofi Bonner wasn't headed with Lennar; he was actually Willie Brown's economic development point person over that project. But what happened was that the two Eddies, Eddie and Ed, didn't have their math right and couldn't do it. So as a result, Jerry Brown and Robert Bob in 1998, even before Jerry won the election, said, when you win, let's go after the Super Bowl that San Francisco is losing.
Gotcha.
That's how that started.
I got you. Speaking of stadiums and miscalculations, got to read a quick ad, but once we come back, I want to go back in time a little bit. I want to review some of Mayor Tao's comments in press conferences, go through an interview she's had in the past that's with Raj Mathai, which seems like basically an echo of many statements she has made, and go back in time and let's get a true response of whether she was accurate in what she said or what holes was there in her message. Up next. Let's not sugarcoat it. Coffee isn't just a drink. It's your morning ride or die, your daily jumpstart, your brain's Wi-Fi password. So if that's important, why are you still drinking the sad stuff from aisle 12? Level up your coffee with Trade Coffee, the #1 coffee destination in the country. They team up with over 50 of the best roasters in the U.S. to bring you fresh, specialty coffee that actually tastes like it was made for you, because it was. I took Trade's quiz. It was fast, fun, and freakishly accurate. The first bag they sent smelled like heaven, tasted even better, and made my old grocery store coffee feel like dirty bean water. And if you're not vibing with your first match, Trade swaps it for free until they nail it. The price, basically the same as your go-to brand, but the flavor is in a whole other league. Right now, Trade is hooking you up with 50% off your 1-month trial. Just go to drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. That's TRADE.com/lockedonmlb. 50% off. No excuses. Great coffee is calling. Answer it with Trade. Zennie, September 2nd, 2023, quote unquote, John Fisher to Raj Mathai. I felt the pressure from the collective bargaining agreement we had been working with Oakland for 6 years. We had to have a binding agreement on a new stadium by January of 2024, or we would lose our revenue sharing. Now, Mayor Tao was being interviewed by Raj Mathai at the time, and I thought Raj Mathai came up with a great question. If that's the deal, why don't you pick up the phone right now and make a deal? Mayor Tao's response was, absolutely. John Fisher and I are so close to a deal, and every time I feel like every single week, every single 2 weeks, this is quote unquote now, there's a new story to tell, a new false narrative that the Oakland A's are telling about why they had to leave the city of Oakland. And I continue to call BS on that, because at the end of the day, we went beyond what the A's had requested for in regards to funding the grandiose, not just stadium, but full development that they wanted. And so with that being said, I can't continue to feel that this was always their scheme, is to always say that somehow it was the city of Oakland's fault and that they had to move to a different city. That is quote unquote Mayor Tao. Any accuracy into what she said? And we constantly hear about the goalpost being moved by the A's. Can you comment in and what do you think of what she said in that interview on that particular question?
Well, the main problem, Booney, is that and this goes all the way back to Lionel Wilson and
who was that?
Oakland Mayor Lionel Wilson. He was Oakland's first black mayor since 1976 to, I believe he served from 76 to 80. But actually beyond 80. He served 3 terms. But Lionel decided he was going to get into a debate with Al Davis. And my point is that if you take a look at the history of elected officials and their actions with sports organizations in Oakland, the elected official, for the most part, has to act like we're just as important as you are. There's that constant presentation. With Libby, it's like we're not going to be played. We're not going to be used. You know, it's like my god sister. With all due respect to the loss of her mom and my godmother, but it's like my god sister was basically parroting a caricature idea she had of the athletics that she thought she heard on television that she thought would politically play well, as opposed to the reality that you get from most cities in the United States, which is a certain degree of respect and deference, because they want that sports business. Look at, in the case of Chicago, look at the number of suburbs, Arlington Heights, Skokie, and so on, who had mayors that were glowing letters about the Bears and how much they wanted the Bears in their city, and that's economic development. That's what you do. But in our case in Oakland, with the exception of Wally Haas and the A's, and that's because,
He lost money.
well, it wasn't so much because of Wally Haas. No, Wally Haas and the A's, they treated Oakland exceptionally well. I don't call them losing money.
Okay.
Maybe Guy Saperstein would say something like that, but I don't agree with the guy's point of view on a lot of things regarding the A's anyway. So
Sure.
there, and he knows it. So my point is that, and the reason why I respond to the comments of the former, co-owner of the A's is simply that he made some comments about me that I didn't appreciate, and I felt were less than intelligent. Okay, and I haven't forgotten it, and
Gotcha.
so and I never will. And so my point is that separate from Guy and his issues, the relationship between the Haas family and the Oakland mayor's office and elected officials was stellar.
Yeah.
Elihu will tell you that to this day. It was almost the exception that proves the rule regarding how Oakland elected officials engage with sports owners and executives. All right.
So you don't think Tao's office was at that same level?
She wasn't at. You mean the level of respect for Fisher? No, because
do you think she did everything that the A's? She did everything the A's asked for.
No, that's not even the question. The question is, Shang was new.
Shang was new.
Right. The question is, did Shang pick up where Libby left off in terms of, forget about the term sheet, making sure the term sheet was, understand term sheet was really done, understanding that tax increment financing wasn't done, and SB 293 scared, I don't care what anybody says, a considerable amount of time was spent by Dave Cobble, by the mayor, and by Nancy Skinner, and Rob Bonta, our then great assemblyman, forming SB 293 Skinner. And what is that? That's the designer tax increment financing property, where how it works, folks, is essentially simple. If you live in Oakland, you pay property taxes. Then you say, hey, you know what? A group of you say, you know what? We don't like that development around here is not happening, or we want a stadium. And someone else says, well, hey, use tax increment financing, and you get together and you develop a boundary that includes where you live and a number of other properties, and a property tax you pay that normally goes to the City of Oakland, the County of Alameda, BART, AC Transit, EB Mud goes to one organization. We used to call it the Redevelopment Agency. Now we call it the Public Financing Authority. That's it. All right. And the Public Financing Authority spends that money either by floating a bond issue, getting huge money up front, we call proceeds, and using that to help, give a part of it to the builders of the stadium as a subsidy there, part of it for infrastructure repair and so on, all in accordance with what is called an infrastructure financing plan. All right.
Right.
My point is that the formation of that enhanced infrastructure financing
never took place,
and it should have been done by 2021. It really should have been done by March, but it wasn't. And the first thing Libby said after Commissioner Manfred said, hey, you know what?
This is in 2021. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And if you go into actually May 31st of 2021, Commissioner Manfred said, I'm concerned about the pace of this project. I'm paraphrasing.
And we're going to definitely get to that, Zennie, for sure.
Right. And my point is that what Shang should have done when she came into office was simply just say, hey, look, A's are top priority. We've got some business we need to finish with them. It's already laid out, and we're going to finish it. And just kept it simple. But instead, she had to come in and make statements like, well, they're going to pay for this. They're going to do that. And again, it's the same thing about I've got to prove that I'm big as you are. I have to prove that I'm as important as you are. And that gets us in trouble all the time.
I want to stick back on that Raj interview. And the next thing Fisher said to Raj Mathai, quote unquote, we have been unable to secure a reliable date by which we would have a fully approved project. We were running out of time.
That's right.
Mayor Tao. said the project was never approved because the A's never moved to get it to that point. The Oakland A's were playing games. The A's have asked for multiple delays. They kept pushing the project back in time. Again, she is pushing the blame on the A's. And again, it's the big contention around here. Is there any truth to what she's saying, that the A's delayed the project in order for it to be delayed so many times that they would have to move to Vegas?
No, the A's didn't delay the project from the city's end because the city simply, again, didn't do its homework regarding tax increment financing. If this needs to be emphasized, I don't care how many people get tired of me saying it, but look, if you have a financing plan set up you're supposed to do and you don't do it, you don't ignore it. And so where we're at is that what Chang did was literally spent a lot of time trying to make her position look good and not saying, hey, look, we are going to get this tax increment financing zone done, and here's our fast track to do it so that we can start the subsidy flowing. If they had done it on time, Booty, in 2021, they would have had a 2-year period of growth in the increment revenue, which they could have used for administrative costs, which could have allowed the city to have a bigger staff to work on it.
Got a question for you when you get a chance after Zennie. Sorry to interrupt you.
And my point is that because they didn't implement the enhanced infrastructure financing district legislation, which includes tax increment financing, and that was, you have to understand, that was the deal. That was what was supposed to be done. It wasn't done. So I don't care what anyone says. That's the direction the city set out with.
And that leads me to the next question, which is exactly what Raj asked her, which is interesting you talk about that. But again, Jordan has an interesting point here. And this is something that we hear often, right? How can you support your local team if they treat their fans like beep?
Well, here's the thing. I don't think that has anything to do with the last question, but it seems like we're jumping. So we're
jumping a little bit. I want to get there.
That's cool. Okay, I just want to make sure that cognitively I got that out of the way.
Yep.
Here's my point. My point is simply that it's important to understand that the Athletics are in a situation where they were one tenant in a large facility, and in such a way that if another organization comes in, be it the Raiders or the Athletics across over at the arena, or any act or circus act comes in, they don't get any revenue from that.
Right.
And so they're locked in to this, maybe I shouldn't say locked on, right? All right. They are locked in this situation where they can't at all gain more money except to go back to the Coliseum Authority and say, hey, look, you know what? We don't like our lease. And so if they say that, then you have to go through a whole set of negotiations around that. And why do they not like their lease? Because they're not making enough money. And so they've been locked into this situation, literally a straitjacket, year after year after year. And yet in 2023, what's been going on is that, not 2023, I say yet over that period of time, what's been going on is that the cost to pay a player has went up dramatically starting in 2003.
Right.
And then it really hit a high mark in its increase in 2012. And now we have players like, Shotani are making $700 million. So, I mean, if you think about it, you have to ask the question, how does one pay for that? And that's why we see Athletics looking at Las Vegas and looking at a stadium or ballpark where they will own all of the revenue from it. So
Right.
if the weekend plays for it,
At the Coliseum, they did not, correct?
if the weekend goes to play on it, okay, or play, if the weekend goes to do a concert, then they get that money. All right, they get not all of it, but a percentage of it. Of course, the producers of the concert get a healthy percentage too. But my point is that they get that money. Anything that occurs in their facility, they get that money, and that money can be used to do what? Pay top players. And if you think about it from an amortization standpoint, they can really afford the Shatanis. Okay, they can't do that now.
No, you can't do that now, huh?
Yeah,
And that's
no.
why he never spent.
Right. Well, it's how can you spend what you don't have?
Yeah.
And here,
Because
my
he's a
point is that
billionaire,
people
right?
act like that doesn't matter.
I know
And
what you mean.
people
I know
need
what
to
you
get
mean.
away from that. You have to. You're building a business, and the idea with the business is simply that the business is supposed to pay for itself. You can't say, well, that person's a billionaire. All right, so what? Being a billionaire doesn't mean that person is trying to lose money
Yeah.
at all. If you take a look at the reason why a number of people buy into NFL stadiums, it's not necessarily just for ego, even though that's a big driver. It's also simply because, and I want to thank you for having him on the show, by the way, but it's also simply because in the case of the National Football League stadiums, their impact on the franchise value of the team causes an increase in that such that it has consistently year over year outperformed the S&P 500, which
So let me
means
get this
it's the
straight.
best investment ever.
Let me get this straight. Let's say if the Rolling Stones played at the Oakland Coliseum, the A's don't see that revenue, but if they played in Vegas, they see that revenue?
That's right.
How's that work?
Well, easy, because it's the design of the lease. It's the contract
Got you.
says there's something that a number of people may be aware of, something called STADCO. STADCO simply is short form for Stadium Corporation, and STADCO basically has it written into the agreements it has. It handles all of the activities in the stadium, but it has written into those agreements that it will receive a certain percentage. STADCO is the organization that really governs the operation of the facility, and STADCO is owned by the sports organization. That's true for the Raiders in the case of Allegiant Stadium. That's true for can you hold on for 1 second, Mooney? Is there a way I can I just have to take care of this.
Take your time.
Hold on a second.
Why don't I'm going to jump to a quick break right now, Zennie. And when I come back, I want to talk about tax increment financing like you were mentioning. And I want to talk about Mayor Tao's final press conference when she announced the A's were going to Vegas. Up next. The NBA Finals are here, and they are cooking. Pacers versus Thunder Game 1 was absolute chaos in the best way. Lead changes, draw-dropping dunks, buzzer beaters, and breakout performances coming out of nowhere. You can't blink during these games, or you will miss something wild. So why just watch it when you can win with it? FanDuel makes it stupid easy to get in on the action. From pregame to midgame, I've been tracking who's clutch when it counts. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander in crunch time? Yes, please. If you got a feel for who's heating up, lock in a same-game parlay and ride that momentum. Want to bet live? Stack props as the game unfolds. I did it during Game 1 and turned a heat check into a payday. Oh, and if you're new to FanDuel, drop a $5 bet, and if it hits, they are throwing $200 in bonus bets your way. You read that right, $200. Go to FanDuel.com to jump in. Make every moment count with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Zennie, want to go back to what you were talking about a little bit earlier, tax increment financing. And Raj Mathai had a great question for Mayor Tao. And the question was as follows. Would it have been better to use tax increment financing instead of grants secured by Mayor Schaaf? Her answer, quote unquote, absolutely. That was part of the plan. If you look at the proposal, it is actually that financial district that was already a part of that proposal to create, know and close that gap for funding. And so all of those funds would have been created only because of the ballpark was actually implemented. So to your question, yes, and that was already part of the proposal. What's the difference between the two? I'm not the grants that was secured by Mayor Schaaf and the tax increment financing that Mayor Tao said was already part of the plan.
Well, now it's one thing to say it's part of the plan. The question that Raj didn't ask, because I saw that, was, hey, look, did you implement tax increment financing because Zennie Abraham says you didn't? And I kept saying the reason why I say this is because Raj, and if he says that he didn't talk to me, I'll prove that he otherwise. You can ask him. He sought me out for a lot of background before he talked to her. And I told him specifically to say Zennie Abraham wants to know, because he's talked a lot about this and written a lot about it, why you didn't implement, or the previous mayor didn't implement, SB 293 Skinner and establish the Howard Terminal Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District by 2021. You were also a council member. Okay? So Raj let her off the hook by not asking the questions as I instructed him to ask, because he was seeking me out, because he says, hey, look, I don't know about this stuff. Okay? So the questions he presented were wrong to begin with. He didn't ask questions that point the finger of implementation at the government when the government has a job of implementation on its end. The A's, what's their job? Finish the drawings, make sure that we have construction drawings so they're ready to go, make sure that they're finished in a timely way so that we can run it through our environmental impact consultants, make sure that there's no missing information there, and there was, and that did come out, and it came out in court. All right, all of that was the city's fault.
So Zennie, the IFD was never ever implemented.
EIFD, not an IFD. There's a big difference. And
because
the difference,
in 2021,
hold on.
I apologize. Go ahead.
The difference between IFD, which is used nationwide, it has nothing to do with tax increment financing, and an EIFD is that in California parlance, an enhanced infrastructure financing district is enhanced because you're using tax increment financing. Why is that important? Because tax increment financing is a powerful doubling formula that ensures you get robust revenue returns even during a recession. By contrast, if I'm using an IFD, then 1 year I'm taking taxes on a year-to-year basis, okay? I'm not doubling them. 1 year I take the tax, then it's less the next year. Oh, and maybe somebody wants to downgrade their property values, and so guess what? It's less the next year over that. But because you're not using the tax increment financing doubling formula, that's why it's called enhanced. And a lot of people talk about this stuff, including consultants, but they have no experience with how the math works, with the dynamics and the math behind it. And we get these cognitive errors again and again and again.
So in 2021, in her speech, her famous press conference announcing when the A's were leaving to Las Vegas, quote unquote, Mayor Tao, in 2021, the A's asked the city to form an IFD for the project.
EIFD.
No, she said IFD in her.
I know, but it was wrong.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. All right, IFD for the project, and we did that. Not only did we get Alameda County to participate in funding availability for public infrastructure parks and affordable housing in 2021, the A's asked the city to raise nearly $360 million to fund off-site infrastructure. Well, the city rose to that challenge and raised more than $375 million, with another estimated $100 million in the works. Was that
Yeah.
true?
That's not a question whether it's true or not. The question is, was it enough, and was it in accordance with what they actually did in the draft infrastructure financing plan that was dropped in the database of the Athletic? And I found it April of 2023, which, among other things, and it's if I get it, can you put it up in the area here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Please do.
Sure, yeah.
Please do.
Because
And as you're looking for that, I'm just going to make a few more comments towards the in her press conference, what she said. Just kind of keep that on your back burner. I want to make sure we're clear on everything she talked about.
Sure.
In 2021, the A's asked us to certify an EIR for the project. We not only did that, but we were able to successfully defend it in court in 2022. In 2022, the A's asked us to engage with the BCDC after initial failed vote on this project.
I got it, by the way. It's in the
once again successfully interviewed and helped achieve a final 23-2 vote. So, that's what we're looking at as far as what she said and so forth. I got what you have here. And Oakland Enhanced Infrastructure Financing. What are we looking at here, Zennie?
Sure. Good question. Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, EIFD, Waterfront Ballpark District of Howard Terminal. It's draft. They hadn't even completed it. Okay, Century Urban.
This was by Century Urban. And didn't they originally miscalculate the subsidy?
That's correct. That's correct. And what they did was this new report where they redid everything, and what they did wrong before, folks, was they only used 20 years of revenue collection for a 45-year bond issue. All right. So in other words, they were only going to have a 20-year bond issue, and they left 25 years off under the idea that, you have bonded indebtedness, you have to have bonds you have to pay off, and so therefore you can't have this project with bonds, and that's not true. They completely misled the law. There's nothing in EIFD law in the state of California that says that. Nothing. And not only that, the remaining bond debt with respect to the downtown redevelopment area is $53 million. So get this. If you're going to get $1 billion in proceeds, which they did calculate in this document, why in the heck would you even dream of saying we can't do it because you have bonds that are being paid off, as opposed to saying, hey, look, we can take that money and pay off this bond issue with the proceeds up front. You see what I'm getting at? Because what happens, folks, is that a bond is like a loan. You get the money up front you need. You're paying off the principal and the interest over time. It's the same thing. That's what this is. And so if you go down here through this document as I'm taking you through, there's a table of revenues. That's the proposed development. They were taking the entire $12 billion project that's built over phases, by the way. Then it's go right here. It says use of tax increment financing, and it says the IFP is infrastructure financing plan is what that is. All right. So it refers to that. But then the big enchilada has to do with what are called priority uses and the total cost of the facility of the project here. And it says that it will be $6.7 billion in 2023 dollars. And then it goes down and refers to funding sources. And it goes on as you work through the to say that it gives you the total offsite infrastructure costs, but then the big deal is, and it sort of jumps out at you, is that they have figured out a total of $1 billion in proceeds and $5 billion in revenue to be collected over the full 45-year period. And this lays out what are called the different projects the money was going to go into. and then it says and then let's hear the financing and discussing EIFD law. I'm skipping over what is a lot of verbiage to show you
Yeah.
that this is what was done, but not presented to the public or to the city council. The city council never saw this.
Huh.
Okay, never saw this. Right here, it gets into how tax increment financing is collected, base year, allocation, all right, and how it would be allocated through the EIFD. It consistently refers to EIFD, not IFD. Century
Yep.
Urban got it right this time.
They got it wrong the first time.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Okay, as you scroll through this, all right, document, and you read about commencement of allocation of property tax and everything else. They didn't write this with a nice summary or anything. But here's what it reads. It says the city anticipates allocating net available revenue to the EIFD through approximately a fiscal year 2039-40 based on the expected duration of the site of the EIFD and the areas within it. After deducting the EIFD's estimated allocatable share of already obligations includes existing debt service, required pass-throughs, and pass-throughs like back to the city's general fund, right? Or that $53 million to pay for bond costs, and then of course administrative costs. Listen to this. Approximately $2.5 billion of net available revenue is projected to be allocated to the EIFD over the terms of the project area. All right, and that includes $1 billion up front. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's right there in black and white. Okay, it's right there in black and white, and yet Chang never talked about it. All right, never talked about that, and yet it was put there. And I'm the only person in the media that's A, found it, and then B, turned around and said, hey, look at this. And then I said to Lauren Taylor, by the way, you owe me an apology because I called out their error, and you said you trusted them rather than me. And I said, why? And he said, because, are you kidding me? Give me a break, Lauren. All right. So I mean,
question for you. One thing I'll never understand, Zennie, in this whole thing is at the very end, the A's were presented with these bonds. The city, Shang presented, hey, we got the money. We're all set. You're all done.
No, the A's weren't presented. Whoa, time out. The A's were not presented with bonds.
Or excuse me, they were presented with whatever it may be as if the city delivered on what the A's
They're
wanted.
presented with grants that, look, the document I just showed you showed a total project cost of what? $6.7 billion. How the hell are you going to cover a $6.7 billion cost with almost $400 million in grants? Give me a freaking break. All right.
So let me ask you a question. So
she sat there and lied to you. That's what I'm trying to tell you, man.
So that was that presentation all at the end. As far as we have the money, we gave we delivered on what the A's wanted was a bunch of BS.
It's born of the same raison d'etre that I explained. You have elected officials in Oakland, not all of them, who feel like they have to be the equal of a billionaire and show their constituents they're tough with a billionaire and all this other jazz. Whereas every other city in the United States that has great relationships with sports organizations treats them with the appropriate deference because you want their business. You don't go in like the mayor's chief of staff, Lee Hansen, did and insult Dave at the table and make him think, gee, I'm not coming back here. But that's what she did. And Shang let her do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, how about the narrative that, hey, we provided more in public funds than Vegas did?
Look, it's not that they provided more than public funds. That's relevant. The question is, did you do the right thing in terms of implementing your plan? Not Vegas. Vegas is different because they were trying to get something done very quickly. And in perfect Las Vegas fashion, I can make an argument that it doesn't matter whether it's the A's or the Raiders with their much bigger subsidy. Okay, I can make the argument that Las Vegas is focused less on politics and more on implementation. In Oakland, it's like waiting for Godot. You know what waiting for Godot is, right? Waiting for Godot is these two guys talking about Godot coming. Godot never arrives. That's a play. You know, I mean, it's ridiculous. It is completely ridiculous. And for fans to get behind this and say the city did the right thing or defend them or not mentioning them, that everything's the A's fault, is garbage. I can understand them wanting to spend John to spend money, but to ask John Fisher to spend money he doesn't have is irresponsible. And it's irresponsible people who say they love baseball and the baseball business, including people like Dave Sampson, to go out there chortling this garbage just, for clicks and grins. And that's what they've been doing.
Do you think we've all been played like a fool?
Total. Absolute. Because, look, you're John Q. Public. You're not supposed to have the understanding. But it doesn't mean that because you're not supposed to have the understanding, you deserve to be fooled. But guess what? It happens. And it happened with Oakland big time because you had Shang not wanting to prove that she's as tough as John Fisher. And she can do it in a way where she can take her chief of staff and her director of communications and her project manager, and they can all dress like they're supposed to be in Vogue, all right, off to meet him, and nobody of substance. When they went to visit him, meet him during the All-Star game, nobody of substance. No Gavin, no city administrator, no consultants, nobody such that you have or I have the idea that they have the credibility, certainty, and capacity to get the project done, that they can actually make this thing get built. Okay, that wasn't even in Shang's mind. It was just, well, I want to show them that we put on paper the term sheet in this book form. Who cares? Who cares? Where was the enhanced infrastructure financing district money? Why didn't you say, hey, we're looking at this? Why didn't you say, hey, A's, why didn't you fast track it? They don't know anything about fast tracking. So you have this incomplete document, which is an insult on itself, all right, being put up there in a searchable place on the Athletic database, and the Athletic didn't even write about it, which is more irresponsibility. Okay?
Oh.
This is ridiculous.
Talk a little bit about Vegas a little bit. Is
Sure.
Vegas happening? We haven't seen groundbreaking yet as an individual.
Yeah, it's happening.
Huh?
It's happening. It's
As an
happening as we
economic
speak.
development, what do you think the delay is? Why haven't we seen groundbreaking? What's going on in your mind?
Well, groundbreaking is just a ceremony. Yeah, go back to when the Raiders were building their facility. The Raiders had made significant progress by the time their groundbreaking actually happened. Okay, that progress had to do with the explosion of caliche. It had to do with digging of the tunnel to build a new aquifer on the north side of the property. All of that and more had to be done. The A's are going through a similar process. All right, there is nothing about the A's process that is different than what the Raiders did in Las Vegas. Nothing. It is really Raiders 2.0. It really is.
Yeah, I got you. Anything else?
And I might add, Las Vegas needs it.
Yeah, I bet. Anything else to add on this whole saga, Zennie?
Yeah, hey, subscribe to Zennie62 on YouTube too, because one day I'm gonna have this guy on my show.
Zennie62 on YouTube.
Right? The vlog
Absolutely.
reporter, right? And then make sure you subscribe to Locked On A's.
There you go.
For the best news on the Oakland Athletics and Las Vegas Athletics and Sacramento Athletics.
Hey,
But I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
All right, why do you think that there are certain A's fans that persist in pushing these lies?
I think, and I've said it for a long time. I think it goes back to what's been an issue since the beginning of time, and that is class, right? John Fisher's a billionaire, and we have grown and known to envy or be jealous or angry with those that have more than us. On top of that, it doubles and triples when we perceive that someone's been given his wealth that affects our daily livelihood. And out of that forms a hatred. Out of that forms an anger. I don't think there is anything that will change the mind of people that believe what they believe. Even if Shang Tao came out and said, hey, it was all our fault. No matter what happens, they will hate John Fisher. At the same time, John Fisher hasn't done John Fisher any type of favors either. He's been quiet with regard to the public. They want and he has a essence about himself that looks like is perceived that he is better than you. I don't agree with a lot of it, but that is the type of thing he said. Therefore, there's a lot of hate with regard to that. And again, the truth and what it is difficult to understand. It is difficult to comprehend. Even with what you have said today and shown and exactly what it is, our attention to detail and what it is only for so long. Our capacity is not long. And to be honest, baseball and what it is and Fisher is a mere blimp in our daily lives. But when it is there, we like reading the headlines. We like reading the charismatic Damon Amendola or Damon Bruce with their how they come across in their voice. And it is.
You mean you do?
Yeah. No. I mean, it is like-minded to
it gives me a bellyache.
Yeah,
I gotta be honest.
It's like-minded to what they think, and if it's like-minded to what an individual thinks, they're going to gravitate towards it. And that is media these days.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, unfortunately. But Zennie, as always, my friend, you are the man. I appreciate.
No, you're the man.
I appreciate your time. Let's do this again soon, my friend.
Oh.
Hey, love you, buddy. Appreciate your time.
All right, man. I'll see you. Okay.
All right. Zennie Abraham, everybody. A lot to take in what Zennie has, but God, it's the truth, man. Good stuff. Up next, I got yourself a a real-time treat. We have Las Vegas' own Ron Futrell, sports anchor at KLAS-TV. He's here to give us a pulse on what's happening with the A's' supposed future home in Las Vegas. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Ron Futrell. Mr. Futrell, Ron Futrell, how are you, sir? Thanks for joining us.
Doing great. Thank you. What a pleasure. I always appreciate talking with you.
Absolutely. Las Vegas, a lot of news, or should I say no news, coming out of Vegas right now that has the Bay Area worried and smiling, I think is the best way to put it. What is going on in Vegas right now with what everybody wants to know, groundbreaking?
Well, yeah, they haven't announced a date, a time. I mean, I've heard, okay, I talked to John Fisher probably, it was a Friday night. So it was earlier this year when they had the announcement at the convention center when they put the patches. Remember they announced putting the patches in Las Vegas, and they entered into that agreement with the convention authority here in town to pay to have those patches put on. Anyway, that night, John Fisher talked with all of us in the media, and I asked him the question, groundbreaking, and he said, well, it's sort of already happened. We're already doing some stuff. We're moving some stuff around and making some stuff happen. And I think we probably overemphasize on the exact date of when a spectacular groundbreaking is going to happen. And here's why I say that is I go back to the Raiders experience. When the Raiders had groundbreaking, they had done nothing on that site at Allegiant, where Allegiant Stadium now stands. They did nothing there. And they did a big, spectacular fireworks. There were singers. There were all the dignitaries were there. It was in the evening. You had the Strip as a background, and so it was remarkable. They did it. They went all out with that. I think the A's are going to be, because of time constraints here, they're going to be a little more focused on starting to get the work done, and then put the groundbreaking off to the side. I'm not expecting it to be near as spectacular as the Raiders one was. And it'll just be a, hey, here we go. We're doing more. We're making some stuff happen later this month, perhaps. I then 2 or 3 weeks ago asked Mark Bedane,
sure,
former Raiders president, now right, with the Athletics. I was going to say Oakland there for a minute. I was going to say Oakland Athletic with the Athletics, and he's And he said, again, sort of echoed the same thing, said he's not really sure what's going to happen with that, but that there's some activity on the site. There is activity on the site. There's no question about that, that they are doing some stuff, some of the prep work, some of the groundwork that you've got to do. They're not laying foundation yet. They're not putting anything up vertically, but they're doing some of the ground prep work to make it happen.
Is that work that would need to be done regardless?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, I think that's still a process. I'm not a construction guy, other than I cover them on TV. And so I've seen, what's going through the Raiders experience, go through construction. Go on, here in Vegas, everything gets blowed up and then something else gets built there. So I just observed it from a distance, and they're getting some stuff done.
Any concerns or rumblings with regard to tariffs and the price of steel, or is that something the media is drawing up, or is there some serious legitimacy to it that could possibly delay it? I saw some news say, hey, they're aware of it and they are going to pay the cost regardless.
Well, I think the latter is the case here. They've got the money, okay, and in spite of what people say, you look at the bottom line for the Fisher family. They have the money. Yes, they'd like to have partners in it. The Raiders, okay, I'm going to go back on the Raiders experience. They wanted to, and in fact, they had a partner at one time. If you remember, the late Sheldon Adelson, who owns the Sands Corporation. His wife now, Miriam, owns the majority of the Dallas Mavericks and owns the Venetian and Palazzo are their hotels, plus the convention business around there is where Sheldon made things happen. But he was the instigator, along with a guy who works for him, Napoleon McCallum, a running back, longtime Las Vegan, and a former running back for the Raiders. They were sort of Mark Davis went to them and sort of made things happen early on in this process and made it happen. He dropped out of the Raiders it wasn't smooth sailing for them with the financing. He dropped out at one point because he saw the lease deal, didn't like it. I think he probably didn't like the location of the stadium was around 7 of his competitors' properties, MGM. They got 7 MGM properties, major properties right there next to where the stadium was. Yeah. He was a little, why am I putting $500 million in to help my competitor in this thing, which there's still a little bit of competition between the casinos on the Strip. Sure. Not like it used to be, but there's still some competition. Okay. Where that fits in, they found it. Bank of America, the NFL came up with, and people thought doom and gloom, projects in jeopardy. How are you going to do it without Sheldon's $500 million? Did I say a B or an M there? It was 500 million. Yeah. 500 million is what it was. So they came up with, Bank of America stepped in, put the money in to help Mark Davis. Now, if you've seen the latest, and you probably talked about this before, the Raider franchise that was worth less than $2 billion when they were in Oakland before they came here is now $6.5 billion worth that. So I think the Fisher family sees that as a model of what can happen moving a franchise to Las Vegas. Call them greedy, call them money hungry, whatever you want. But that's the reality of what happened, and that's the environment in the sports world today. So they'll find somebody to help them if they need to, but they don't. The bottom line is they don't. Mark Davis needed help. Mark Davis didn't have the money. Okay, I couldn't say the same thing about Mark Davis. He needed to make it happen with some outside money. Fishers don't. They're worth. The family is worth, from my estimates. Correct me if I'm wrong, $10 billion.
Yeah, about $9 billion. It seems like when that stock moves, but again, the stock's up from where it was. Anyway, the stock goes up and down. I mean, to pay attention to that from a daily thing and to even assume that whatever money he has is all in stock gap is a little silly. Yeah,
it gets how much of it is liquid and fluid. Can you grab it right away? Can you use it? It's not something that they necessarily need to have partners to do it. They've got the money to make it happen. I can't imagine a scenario where they wouldn't say, oh, let's double or triple our money here by investing it into a franchise that's going to increase tremendously in value. And plus, it's clear, like the NFL, Major League Baseball wants a franchise in Las Vegas. You saw the 30-0 vote.
Absolutely, no
you saw the
question about
30-0 vote. They wanted a franchise in Vegas, so they will do everything they can to make it happen. Vegas will do everything it can to make it happen. It'll happen.
What's the vibe in Vegas like right now for the A's? I mean, they're losing. We know that.
They're struggling.
It's brutal. Yeah. Don't get me started on that. But in general, is it the same that it was when it was first announced? Has it changed? More excited? Less excited? In reality, it's still 3 years away.
I don't think it's any different. They're seeing it as so far down the road.
Sure,
not a big factor. It really isn't. In that. It's not on everybody's minds. I do stories on it. I like it. I enjoy it. I like talking about it. I think there's interest, and we pique some interest in it on a regular basis. We have obviously the Aviators just up the road here in Summerlin, not far away. So we've got that franchise here with a lot of A's players. People do pay attention to, okay, where's Max Muncy now? Is he back? Is he up? Is he going? Where's he at? Kurtz see what he's done. And, it's been fun. I know they've struggled lately, so everything has that caveat to it. Hey, at least they're not the Colorado Rockies. They're setting records for futility. That being said, there's more interest. Here's where I see the interest. There's more interest in the players going up and down and thinking that these guys are going to be playing here before too long, and they'll be doing that here in Las Vegas. They'll be going from Summerlin to downtown, that short trip, and do that will be the scenario that we'll be looking forward to. So there's some interest there, but still it's so far away, and things happen so quickly and fast in Vegas. 3 years seems like forever. Now 2.5 years seems like forever away.
The experiment in Sacramento, I don't know if call it experiment, maybe temporary home, has been a mess for a number of reasons. In your opinion and the vibe out there, is there feeling like, hey, why didn't the A's just go to Vegas and play in the Aviator Stadium?
Oh, you're singing my song.
Yeah.
I've sort of pushed it. That one I have encouraged. I've talked about quite often. I mention it every time I can. They're probably, John Fisher and Mark Bedane are probably tired of hearing me ask that question. Are you going to be playing some games in Las Vegas next season? Because they don't have any schedule for this year, and there's no scenario I see them playing games here in 2025. But the official word I get from them is we'll take a look at it. We'll see. We'll find out. We'll consider that. But behind the scenes, I'm hearing from, I can't say who, but a lot of people that they're going to play a few series in Las Vegas next year. They should. Because for all the reasons and you mentioned there, the ballpark up there in Sacramento, the wear and tear on the grass is going to get worse as the summer goes on for that facility up there. They have a great new stadium in Salt Lake City right now. I could imagine a scenario where next season they talk about playing in 3 different cities. This is crazy, and this is just me going off the top of my head now. Okay. Yeah. But it wouldn't surprise me. Play a series or 2 in Salt Lake during the summer when it's hot in Vegas. When it's, I don't know if it's hotter. I don't know. Sacramento and Salt Lake probably pretty close in temperatures during the summer. But just to give that stadium a little bit of a break from all the wear and tear on it, because it's going 24/7. It's going nonstop between a minor league team and a major league team there in that facility, and there's no need for that when you have 2 certainly better. I've not been to the one in Salt Lake yet, but I've seen it on TV. It's new. It's better than the facilities up there, the Sutter Health in Sacramento. Nothing against Sacramento, okay?
No, you're right. It is what it is.
That's a tough ask to do that for one city. It seems I thought it was crazy that they didn't do it here for 2020.
That's my question. Why didn't they just go to Vegas instead of Sacramento from the beginning?
Well, it's still the wear and tear on the grass is going to be the issue. In the summer months, it's
brutal.
It's a little toasty.
No question.
It's 100 degrees today. We had thunderstorms yesterday that were pretty nice, but it's 100 degrees and it'll get up to 110 before too long. And that's tough to do it on that grass, to play a minor league team and a major league team night after night after night. So split it up, try a few where it's a little bit cooler in the summer months, but start the season maybe in the season here in Vegas. The first argument I heard against that from an A's, I'll just say from an A's official, is they presented this scenario. Well, they don't want to spoil the grand opening of the new stadium by A's playing games in Las Vegas before they come here. I gave two arguments to that. One, I think that's overrated. It's still going to be a spectacular. It's still going to be a spectacular grand opening with the new stadium. So that number two, by the way, the A's have already played major league games here in Las Vegas. I was here for them in '96, as I've told you before.
Right.
When the Oakland A's played 2 series here in Las Vegas at Cashman Field because Mount Davis
was getting built. Right,
wasn't completed. It wasn't completed on schedule. Wasn't done in time. So they had to. So I know few people will remember that. I'm the old timer that I can, but they've already had, and it won't matter. It won't matter. Play some games here already.
Yeah, right.
I predict 90% chance we're going to see Major League Baseball in Las Vegas
next year,
2026 season.
Yeah,
at the ballpark in Summerlin, and we should.
Last question: if you're a betting man, today is June 6th. 3 weeks is June 27th. Over under groundbreaking June 27th.
Under.
Okay.
Under. I'm going under. It'll be. I really think it'll be later this month that they'll do. To what degree they do a big blowout, I don't know. I mean, the fences are still up all around the facility there at the old Tropicana Hotel.
Yeah.
So you can't drive by and look to see what they've done. But you can go into one of the walkover, and I've done it over one of the walkover areas. We've tried to get approval to fly drones over it. It's tough because it's close to the airport. So that's difficult. But I'm going to go with the under on that. That I think they'll do it soon, this month. And I'd be surprised if it's delayed much longer. Then you get into the hotter summer months. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Then you get into the temperature issue.
The dog days.
The dog days of July and August and September. They can get brutal here in this city. Only been here 40 years, so I'm still getting used to the heat. I need more water. Hold on. Here we go. Look. We'll have to see how this tastes. Is it okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Tastes like the OTAs, the organized team activities going on right now with the Raiders. So
we'll see what happens.
Yes.
Ron, thank you very much. I know you're busy, man.
Oh, always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on anytime as this goes. It's interesting to see what's happening. I think there's, I feel bad for the fans in Oakland. I get it. I've lost team. I grew up in LA and lost the Rams for 21 years, was homeless. That was my response when people ask, who's your NFL team? I don't have one. I'm homeless. My Rams left me for St. Louis. And I was happy as can be when they did come back. So I know that's a different scenario, but my theory on that, and I'll be real quick here, is that having a sports facility is not a right to a city. It's a privilege, and it needs to be treated as such. Yeah. And you've got to care and nurture it however you can as fans, to hope that a Georgia Frontiere doesn't come along and say, I just want to be in St. Louis because it's my hometown, which she did. There's a lot involved in all of this. It involves city officials showing that they want a team there and treat it as a privilege for a city to have a franchise, not the right that's guaranteed forever that you can just say, you've got to be here no matter what. And we can treat you as, we can put you in the crappiest stadium on the planet. You still have to be here. Okay.
Absolutely.
So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Ron Futrell, an absolute legend. Love that guy. Been in Vegas for 40 years, knows the insides and outs of exactly what's going on. But believe it or not, guys, this is a baseball show, even though The A's haven't been doing so well, but they've made a number of moves today, transactions. When I come back, I'm going to cover those transactions and give you a little bit of an update on all those injuries you've been waiting for. Up next. The NBA Finals are here, and they are cooking. Pacers versus Thunder Game 1 was absolute chaos in the best way. Lead changes, draw-dropping dunks, buzzer beaters, and breakout performances coming out of nowhere. You can't blink during these games, or you will miss something wild. So why just watch it when you can win with it? FanDuel makes it stupid easy to get in on the action. From pregame to midgame, I've been tracking who's clutch when it counts. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in crunch time? Yes, please. If you got a feel for who's heating up, lock in a same-game parlay and ride that momentum. Want to bet live? Stack props as the game unfolds. I did it during Game 1 and turned a heat check into a payday. Oh, and if you're new to FanDuel, drop a $5 bet, and if it hits, they are throwing $200 in bonus bets your way. You read that right, $200. Go to FanDuel.com to jump in. Make every moment count with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, guys, a few moves the A's made today. Shea Langoliers, unfortunately, is hitting the IL. Got a little bit, looked like he hurt his side yesterday. He's going on the 10-day IL. It shouldn't be long, but the A's have brought up Seth Brown, who has been tearing it up in Las Vegas, hitting 500. I think 7 bombs, has been an absolute tear. Something similar happened to Seth Brown last year. He started off super slow, got sent down, and when he got brought back up, went ballistic. Had a great July and August. Last year was a little bit later in the season than this year, but I mean, hopefully it's the same type of result. They DFA'd Drew Avans and CJ Alexander. TJ McFarland is off the IL. Michael Kelly, who we saw out of the bullpen yesterday, is off suspension. And Justin Sterner, Elvis Alvarado got sent down to Vegas. JT Ginn had a rehab start yesterday. Looked good. 3 2/3 innings. I believe it was 1 hit, 2 walks. I want to say no runs, 2 or 3 strikeouts. He looked all right. He was solid. Brett Harris, third baseman, I've been super high on. Had better numbers in Vegas before Nick Kurtz. Better numbers in Vegas than Nick Kurtz when they were both playing at the same time. He got hurt and then came up. And to give you an idea about his defense at third base, when you think of Denzel Clark defensively, that's Brett Harris at third base. Brett Harris is like a young Matt Chapman, phenomenal. His big deal has been his bat, and he had his bat going this year in Vegas. Nick Kurtz should be back on Monday against the Angels. Miguel Andujar, it's going to be some time. Oblique injury. Again, these are according to David Forst. Ken Waldichuk, hopefully have him back after the All-Star break. Brady Basso, throwing the hitters, rehab game in the next couple weeks, and possibly see him back at the end of the month. Again, all of this according to general manager David Forst. JT Ginn threw his rehab game yesterday. I don't know if they're going to have him throw another rehab game or bring him right up. Gunnar Hoglund didn't sound good. Hip injury. It's going to be some time, quote unquote. Zach Geloff, ribs, nearing a rehab assignment, is expected to begin a minor league rehab assignment before the end of next week. I assume that he will probably play 2 series in Vegas before he gets sent up. So I'm thinking Geloff 3 weeks to a month, probably in July sometime. We'll see Geloff, but he is getting close. So, we're moving along. We do have a game tonight, believe it or not, after all those interviews. Flea Market, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Zennie, when I apologize, I didn't get a chance to ask Ron. I will do so. The A's tonight, Lawrence Butler leading off, Jacob Wilson batting second, Rooker third, Soderstrom fourth, Max Muncy batting fifth, Bleday sixth, Urias seventh, McIver starting at catcher, batting eighth, Denzel Clark, outfield playing center field. Thank you, R.D. Moss. Much appreciated. A's will be facing Dean Kramer, 2016 14th round pick for the Los Angeles Dodgers in 2016 out of, speaking of Vegas, UNLV. He's okay. 5-5, 4.70 ERA, 4.70 ERA, started 12 games. Last few games. Last start was May 31st against the White Sox. He went 6 innings, 6 hits, 1 run, 1 earned, 2 walks, 7 Ks. On the 25th against the Red Sox, 5 1/3, 7 hits, no runs. Against Milwaukee, 5 1/3, 9 hits, 4 runs, 4 earned. A's are going to have an opportunity to hit him, right? Dean Kramer is no ace. They can hit him. Countering against the Orioles is JP Sears. JP Sears had 3 bad starts. Last start against the Blue Jays, he was good. And we need something similar to that. We got to start building on it. Tonight is definitely a winnable game. I almost want to say, believe it or not, the A's are favored by the Vegas odds makers. I'm going to check that out just to see. Yes. Well, no, not quite. Almost. The Orioles are minus 123. The A's are plus 101, over under 10.5. Close to a pick 'em. So we'll see what happens. I will be going, if you haven't been sick of me already, I will be going live post-game right after the game. We're about 10 minutes after the game. I hope to see you there. Hope you enjoyed the interviews by Zennie and Ron Futrell. Absolutely, RD. Let's get some tonight. Let's get a win, huh? Two in a row. They call that a streak. Why not? Why not us? Why not us? Hey, thanks a lot, guys. Hopefully I'll see you post-game. Take care. Bye-bye. You made the right call by making Locked On A's your first listen. Championship mindset, elite taste. Now, for your second listen, it's time to hit the big stage with Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. It's like the MLB version of Red Zone, except instead of touchdowns, you're getting bombs, bat flips, and bullpen meltdowns from across the league. You will get local experts breaking it all down with that home team edge, but on a national scale. No fluff, no filler, just real talk from people who actually watch the games. So after you roll with us, level up with Locked On MLB Game Night. Find it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.